Hello and welcome to Starside Flicks. We haven't done one of these in a while. I am your host, Zach Owens, and my co-host is Aaron Capo.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Well, we have seen Avengers Endgame. It's been out for 2 weeks, is it now?
And you've seen it twice, which I'm very jealous of.
I have seen it twice, but at this point, I feel like we can go ahead and just go right into spoilers, so...
Yeah, I mean, officially, Marvel has ended the spoiler ban because today they released a very spoilery trailer for the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, there was a little thing before it where Tom Holland was like, this has spoilers, but watch it if you've seen Endgame. So we've seen it twice and it's been out for I've seen it twice and it's been out for 2 weeks. So we figure we can go ahead and do a spoiler discussion. So Endgame is like the culmination of 10 years and 22 films. And not
crazy.
Not necessarily all of those movies are great, but most of them are. And they have done this really unlikely thing where they weaved them all together in this insane universe that all comes together in Endgame. So my question to you is, does it work? Does it provide a necessary sense of closure to the Infinity Saga and the characters involved?
I feel like it definitely does. I don't know about you, but I came away very positively from this movie.
I did as well, and that's why I went to see it twice, I guess. Maybe that's an indicator, but yeah, it was like an epic send-off for the first wave of heroes, like the initial 6 Avengers who were together for that first Avengers movie.
Did you have to get up at all during the movie?
No. Actually, both times I was fine. I was worried I was going to have to go to the bathroom or something, but I was fine. Did you?
No, but I really had to go to the bathroom towards the end of my only viewing, I guess. But I had heard that there was a special thing during like a post-credit scene, but there wasn't a mid-credit scene. So right when the credits started rolling, I ran to the bathroom and came back.
What was that special thing? Just the sound of the hammer?
That clang.
What was that officially? Or is it just speculation?
I'm not sure if it is official or not, but the speculation I heard was that it's Tony's hammer from the first.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Iron Man movie.
That's what I assumed it was. It was just kind of a callback to when he was first forging the very first Iron Man suit. But
well, we're starting at the end though. Let's talk about the beginning.
It's true. We're getting way ahead of ourselves.
They really flipped the script because I was watching it and like the first like 20 minutes are what I thought the entire movie was going to be, which was a real it took me off guard because
it flies by super quick too. Like that first 20 minutes, a lot kind of happens because I have to relocate Tony Stark and Nebula, and so. Yeah. Captain Marvel shows up and grabs the ship and brings it back to Earth. And there's just sort of flying through a lot of details there. And then it gets to them just like immediately going after Thanos. And you're like, wait, I thought this was like climax type material, but I guess it's for the beginning.
I was like, man, I almost was like, did they forget a reel or something?
Yeah.
Like this is just rolling into what I assumed the end game was.
Yeah, exactly. So they get there and they go ahead and I guess it's too late. He's already destroyed all the stones. And so you're like, uh-oh, well, what's going to happen? They've already destroyed the stones. There's no way to fix what was done. And so then Thor just goes ahead and kills Thanos. And you're like, man, I guess that's it then. but yeah, then there's that like 5 years later, and that's when the movie starts like really sort of, it slows down and starts settling in, and that's when it starts. I don't know if I would say it was daring to slow it down the way they did, or to like sort of give it that 5-year expansion to sort of let things sort of wallow in misery as because of the failure that they had. But I think by spending that time and sort of showing us the world that way, it makes the eventual success so much more satisfying.
I think so too. And it led to one of my favorite scenes, which was, I think we've talked about this in the podcast, but I love time travel, mostly in rom-coms. But one of my favorite scenes and something that like got me emotionally was when Paul Rudd comes back and like sees his daughter for the first time, and he's like, "Oh man, you're so big." That was a great scene because I love time travel, and it kind of like kicks off the whole time travel element, which I have to say I was not expecting there to be time travel in this movie.
I think that was one of the big theories, so I was like ready for that to be one of the possible things that was going to happen. I tried to avoid spoiler stuff, but I did like see a few in-game theories on YouTube just because there was approximately 1 million videos like that posted on YouTube. But yeah, it basically does become Back to the Future 2.
Except I like that they lay out all the rules
do you think
for their time travel.
Do you think it stuck to those rules? Did it like do a good job of that?
That's my question, because I was thinking that, and then I listened to another podcast and they were speculating about that too, because obviously at the end, Captain America goes away to like all the different times, and then he's instantly on that bench, you know?
Yeah.
And that would be the only instance where they weren't abiding by their rules, because you can't go into the past and change the present. But I read that the speculation was that he somehow he went to another splinter reality and lived out in that reality, and then came back, because I guess the shield he gives, not Hawkeye. What's his name? It's another bird.
Yeah.
The bird.
The Birdman.
The wings? What's his
name?
Wingman.
What's it?
There shouldn't be a guy named Hawkeye and another guy who has wings.
Yeah.
Birdman. Anyway, apparently the shield he gives him is a different one than he left with or something like that. So it's like...
Well, he didn't have one when he left.
That's a good point. So it's implied that maybe because it's a different looking shield, another Tony Stark made it, or it's from another reality. So he just came back. So he didn't necessarily stay in our reality and just live his life within like central Earth reality. He came back at the very end somehow.
I mean, that feels like a stretch, but it also, like, it would work. Like, that is a possibility. So I feel like even if you want to say, well, that's the one thing where they don't really abide by the rules that they've established, well, there's an explanation for it. So if you want to read it that way, that's, like, a thing you can do.
Speaking of reading things certain ways, I didn't catch this the first time, and I don't remember what podcast I was listening to, but maybe you caught it since you watched it twice. Did it seem to you at the very end when they were sending Captain America away, he had like an exchange with Bucky?
Yeah, and I think I know where you're going with this.
Like, it seems like Bucky knows he's going for
I
good.
definitely got that sense on the second viewing. I was like, the first time it didn't occur to me, but the second time I was definitely like, okay, this definitely feels like Captain America and Bucky had a conversation and they both knew what was happening, because Bucky definitely is like, I'm gonna miss you, and later he's like, he knows where he is and he's like, hey, Birdman, go talk to him, and then he's like shaking his head like, yeah, like, we've planned this, you're the new Captain America. What is that guy's name?
You know, he's going to be Kovac in the second season of Altered Carbon.
Yeah, if they hadn't ruined that show, I might watch it. Yeah, but
I know, it's a real bummer.
I mean, the actor seems like a cool guy, but I don't know. They ruined that show. Anyway.
They did. It was not good.
Yeah. So what did you think about Captain Marvel not being in this movie very much?
That was the other thing that I was like, oh man, this completely subverted my expectations.
Because it definitely seemed like she was going to be key to it, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, she's going to be the main thing. She's going to be the nuclear weapon they drop on Thanos, and it's going to be a crazy battle. And that kind of happens, but she's only in the movie for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, collectively, it's probably close to 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, anytime you have basically a Superman character and you have like one of these team up movies, they're easily the character that can just sort of, they're the instant I win button and they can just fix everything. And so you almost have to come up with a way to sideline them so that, you know, you can have a movie. And that's one reason why I don't like Superman and Captain Marvel as characters, but their explanation is basically, well, she's going to go help out all these other planets, and even if they're going to change the past to sort of undo what happened, you'd think she would want to be involved in that, because that's sort of going to change the reality of everything else in the universe.
Well, it's crazy because the first time they contacted her, they had that pager, and then I guess that doesn't work anymore, and she didn't give them another one, because when she appears as a hologram and is talking to Black Widow, she's like, I gotta go take off and do some other stuff. And Black Widow's like, so we're not gonna see you for a while? She's like, yeah, I gotta go like out of communication range for months at a time. So you understand. I'll see you later. Like, just give Earth another pager, you know?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really explain that very well, like how they are communicating back and forth, because she does just kind of show up, and it's not really stated as to.
I assume
like,
she
who
shows up
called her.
because everyone, like, they fixed the snap or whatever. Like, all life came back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's like, I gotta get back to Earth because something crazy is happening, I bet.
Yeah, and I wonder like what kind of radar she has for enemy troop movements, because Thanos is not
That's a good
it's
point.
not a small ship that's moving around. It's a pretty sizable spacecraft, so.
That was a cool scene when it, like, flew out of the time machine and, like, expanded really quickly.
Yeah.
I will say, so I watched this movie in 3D because that was just the showing that we got. Did you watch it in 3D?
No, I did not.
It did not add a lot, but the thing that 3D is really good at is showing very small things in very large environments. So anytime there was a shot of like a spaceship hovering in space, or that shot of like anytime Thanos's ship is just like hovering above the battlefield, looked really cool. Also, that shot where it's just Captain America and he stands up against Thanos and the whole army, and there's like kind of like a rift between them, or like a space between them. That looked really awesome and like picturesque in 3D. But those were the only times I really like noticed it.
I think they did shoot most, if not all of it, in like the IMAX.
They did. It was the second movie ever to be shot entirely in IMAX.
It looked amazing. And like those shots you're talking about where his ship is just sort of hovering up there, that did look awesome. And like those big battle sequences towards the end also were pretty amazing. And it's pretty helpful to be able to spot everything that's going on when you have the larger aspect ratio. So
Those like there was so much going on in every frame in that final battle that lasted. I felt like it lasted forever. It was so cool.
It was a very cool sequence, and I feel like they gave almost everyone a little moment to do something. Like they didn't get to do like a ton of stuff. They had to they were really economizing the time because they had so many characters to get to, but pretty much everybody gets to do something. They get to have some sort of moment. And that's one thing that the Avengers films have been very good at, especially when they have like the whole group together, is sort of giving everyone a moment and not necessarily losing track of them all.
I assume you saw this in packed theaters both times, right?
Yes.
What were the standouts where everyone cheered? Because there were 2 times in the movie where my entire audience cheered.
I mean,
And I wonder if they're the same.
the biggest moment, without doubt, is when Captain America got Mjolnir,
Yeah, that was great.
which was an awesome scene. That's something that happens in the comics, but if you didn't know,
I had no idea.
if you didn't know that, then it would come as a complete surprise. And you might also be going like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But they kind of do set it up in previous films when they're like, is he worthy or whatever? And he kind of nudges it a little bit. And
in Ultron.
Yeah, in Ultron. So, and then when Thor sees that he has it, he's like, I knew it, I feel like the moment worked, even if you didn't necessarily have previous knowledge from the comics. So,
Any other standout moments where the crowd was loving it? I'll say that in my theater, when that elevator scene happened and he said, Hail Hydra, that got a big reaction from our crowd.
Yeah, the first time I saw the movie, that got a big laugh because it's obviously a callback to, what is it, The Winter Soldier, where he's in the elevator and he fights all of those guys. And this time he just says Hail Hydra and walks out and doesn't have to fight anybody. Like, there's so much of that stuff that's like callbacks to previous movies in the MCU that, like,
They probably call back every movie, every one of the 21 movies.
do you think so?
I would bet so, because there's stuff from Thor: The Dark World, which is, I think, one of the worst ones.
It is. Well, so they did a great job of making them all feel relevant to what's going on in this movie, which is another, I don't know how they did it, but it's really cool that they were able to do that because, one, they had to actually go back into things we've seen from previous movies, but also, like, you just have little moments where because Ant-Man hasn't been around for some of this stuff, so like Paul Rudd's character doesn't know what happened during Thor the Dark World. So he's like there asking, and so Thor is trying to explain this stuff. And it's from a movie that like most people didn't like, but he's able to, I don't know, they're able to get like more meaning out of that than maybe there was previously, because I thought the scenes with Thor going back into what would have been Thor the Dark World worked really well. And
I think so too.
And part of that is because they give Thor a moment with his mom, just like they give Tony Stark a moment with his dad, and Captain America has a moment to see his long lost love again. So those were like really satisfying character moments as well. And that's another reason why this feels like a send off to the original cast. But yeah, going back and seeing the first Avengers movie sort of from a different angle, almost like they probably did have to shoot additional stuff, like material from that movie.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine that they had planned this that far in advance, that they actually had that stuff ready to go.
They're so good at aging and like de-aging people, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked great.
I mean, it looked great, but like Michael Douglas, like you're saying, they de-aged him and it worked. And you just have like, it's kind of a reminder of how many big names and recognizable faces that they've had throughout the entire, 22 films and across 10 years. And the closing credits, they like show them all off, and you just kind of go, wow, I almost forgot that some of these people were actually in it. And they actually brought back Natalie Portman to...
Actually, I read that was unused footage from Dark World.
Oh, was it really? I guess that makes sense, yeah.
Because she was literally in it for 5 seconds.
Yeah, they didn't really...
She like woke up and walked slowly away off camera.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that.
Which is crazy. Like, why wouldn't you want to come do... This is the biggest movie of all time.
I don't know. I feel like she wanted out. And
they got Robert Redford for like 5 minutes.
I know. And he was supposed to be retired. Like there was a movie last year called The Old Man and the Gun that was like his swan song movie where he's like officially done. That's the last one. And then he's like here for 5 minutes or whatever. So I guess that's cool. And then also the very end where they're sending that Tony Stark, like proof that Tony Stark has a heart or whatever. They're sending that away in his sort of memorial, and the camera just kind of slowly pans around and you see all the people. That was it was a really moving scene, but also it was just so cool to see all the people together. Although maybe they weren't together. Maybe it was just like a composite shot of like, okay, we've got Paul Rudd for this time. We've got Samuel L. Jackson for this time, and so they just had to like put it together somehow. But I don't know. I thought that was a cool moment.
A lady in my theater was losing it during that scene when they pushed off his little proof that Tony Stark has a heart. She was like weeping in the back of the theater, which is crazy.
I was gonna ask, did you notice a lot of people crying in your screening?
The most audible one was that one. I heard a couple people like shifting in their seats when Paul Rudd came back to like hang out with his daughter. I
will say
other emotional points.
The time I noticed it, so Tony Stark does the snap to get rid of Thanos and all of his forces, and like Peter Parker is like weeping and coming over and trying to say, we did it, you know, and then Pepper comes over and she, I think, repeats some line, like she was talking to him because he didn't want to go, right? Because he wanted to take care of his family, wanted to take care of Pepper and his daughter. But she knows him like better than anyone else. And she basically says, like, you're not going to be able to live with yourself if you just sit on this thing and don't participate. You're a hero. That's what you do. It's always in you. And so you kind of have to do it. And so you won't be able to rest if you don't do this. And so then he goes and does it. And of course he snaps and sacrifices himself. And she comes over into him and is just like, you can rest now. And that was like sort of a it was a tearjerker moment. And it goes almost silent after that. And I could definitely hear a lot of sniffling in my theater the first time I went to see the movie.
That's almost 3 back-to-back moments, because there's that moment where she's like, you can rest, and he's kind of like fading away. Then you get the moment where he has his video will, and he says, "I love you 3000," which is like another
which is a huge meme now. Like people on Twitter posting, "I love you 3000." Like,
and then you get the funeral scene where they push his like little canoe away. So it's like nonstop emotional. And then you get the scene with Chef. What's that guy's name? Happy.
Oh yeah. For a second, I was like, Chef. Oh no, I got you.
Where he's talking to his daughter, and she's like, "Oh, I love cheeseburgers," and he's like, "Oh,
which is a callback to the first Iron Man movie when he gets back and he's like, "I just want a cheeseburger." There's so many good callbacks.
Yeah, it's true.
You do you really have to know all of the MCU movies, especially.
That's what they did masterfully. Like they made it worth your while to watch all of these movies.
This is like sort of rewarding you for having stuck with them all these years and like knowing the movies really well. That's why this feels like such a satisfying culmination of the 10 years and 22 movies. So it's so cool how they did that. And like, I guess to an extent, if you haven't kept up with them, maybe you will be a little bit lost, but it's like a long-running TV series at this point, but they're movies.
Yeah. What did you think of the opening? We didn't talk about that with Hawkeye and his family.
I thought that was really well done. It was important because, one, like, I feel like there are a couple of movies, at least, that we didn't get that we probably should have gotten before this movie came out. And one of them would be Hawkeye turning into Ronin and going on his, like his killing spree or whatever.
We did get that cool one shot though.
We did. That was a very cool shot. But like later on in the scene where he and Black Widow are like fighting over who should die, he's like, I've done a lot of bad things. I feel like that moment would have been so much more powerful if we had the context of where he'd been and what he'd done in between.
I feel like we're going to get the context though.
You think we will get a Ronin movie?
Well, no, but we're going to get one of the Disney Plus shows is Hawkeye and his daughter becoming Hawkeye. And 100% he's going to have some flashbacks of all the terrible stuff he's gotten up to. Yeah,
that could be. Well, and also there's going to be a Black Widow movie, right?
Yeah, and so that'll give us context. Because we never really heard about her beginning. We had a little, in Age of Ultron, I think there were some flashbacks of her origin, but we've never really gotten to the heart of when she was just like a cold-blooded assassin.
And honestly, I do think she's one of the most interesting characters that they've had in the MCU so far. And a lot of it is how she was trained and all of that backstory. And it feels like kind of wrong that we didn't get a solo movie from her, just sort of a prequel before this happened. Because again, that would have made her sacrifice scene so much more powerful.
Do you think she will come back? Because here's my theory.
I mean, there's context for it. It could happen, I guess.
Because like Captain America has to go back and give the Soul Stone back to the Red Skull. So maybe he'll be like, soul for a soul, give me back Black Widow when I give you the stone. It's a fair trade. It has to be a trade. So maybe she'll come back in the present. I don't know.
You know what would have been really cool is if they're like, okay, Captain America, go. And then they count down 5 seconds and they're like, okay, bring him back. And then when they hit the button, if Black Widow showed up and then
that would have been great.
And then Captain America was sitting all old over on the bench over there.
That would have been great. Yeah, I'm interested to see where this Black Widow movie takes, like if it is an origin or if it is somehow in the new Avengers or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they'll do that, but the other movie that we didn't get that we should have gotten was a Hulk movie where he becomes Professor Hulk.
That was so to the two comedic characters, I guess. Actually, I guess there are three because Hulk is great and then Thor is great. And every scene with Paul Rudd, I feel like he's still like, even that scene where he's just sitting trying to eat a taco is a great scene.
Yeah, Paul Rudd's great. And I do think Thor has become a fan favorite ever since Ragnarok. And it is because they've sort of let him go lean into his comedic abilities. And like he was, I don't know, I felt it was kind of weird because they were doing like a visual gag that they just sort of had to keep running throughout the entire movie. But I guess it works because from his character perspective, he's depressed because he's dealing with the fact that he failed and so many people died. And it really is like, you could pin it on other people as well, but like he had the shot to stop it and he failed.
Yeah.
So it is really sort of weighing heavily on his mind. But I think he also does a good job of like, while that sort of emotional weight is on him at all times, he also plays it off in a comedic way to make it so that that character doesn't feel totally unlike the character that we knew from Ragnarok, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it seems like, so the transition is now, do you think we'll get a Valkyrie movie? Or do you think she'll be part of, because I feel like what they have to do is they have to build up another core of Avengers. And so now that Thor is gone, or he's going to be like off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, like Valkyrie kind of is in that spot. Does that make sense? You think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard that Chris Hemsworth extended his deal.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. Oh, so he still wants to be Thor?
I mean, I don't know for sure. Maybe I should check before I say definitively.
I mean, why would you not want to be Thor? I mean, it also, he doesn't need to, he's probably going to be in the next Guardians movie. Apparently there's precedent for, like, what do you think the odds are that the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie is called the As Guardians of the Galaxy?
I mean, he did make that joke.
He made that joke, but they could act like it could be Guardians of the Galaxy 3 subheading As Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. I assume that movie is just going to be them trying to find the green one. Man, we don't know a lot of these people's names.
Yeah, I don't know. That may not be like official, but the rumor's been floated around, and for sure it seems like he's going to be there for Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that whole thing was going. I would love it if they brought him back for like a Thor 4, because we need more Taika Waititi Marvel movies.
That would be great. I mean, imagine also if it's just like set on Earth and it's a very small story.
Yeah, so that's one question I was going to ask you. Where, like, after Thanos, what do they do? So we, at this point, as of this recording, we don't know what their Phase 4 plans are. They're not announcing that until after the next Spider-Man movie comes out.
I have speculation about that because they released that Spider-Man movie trailer, as we talked about, and in that, Samuel Jackson, whose character name I do know, and
Nick Fury.
I'm not going to say. That's right, Nick Fury. Said like the snap like ripped a hole in the multiverse. So, and like now these like beings are coming into our reality. So it could be a multiverse type thing. It could also be Galactus, who is giant and just eats planets. And I don't even know how you would show that on screen. Like, how do you fight something that's the size of like big enough to eat a planet?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and
I feel like they have said that they are not going to introduce X-Men anytime soon.
What about the Fantastic Four?
That's a possibility. That's a definite possibility.
The idea that it's now a multiverse opens the opportunity to bring back characters like Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Captain America, so that they, you know, just for one-off things, maybe even just like a cameo or something. But yeah, I don't know where that's all going, but it's very interesting. The reason I brought it up was because there's kind of a thing. I think the Red Letter Media guys were talking about it in one of their videos, this concept of burnout, where if you go too big, it almost like when you try to reset or you try to move on from there, there's this whole cloud of, you know, what's more dangerous than Thanos now? Like, what's bigger than Thanos? Like, you almost can't go to a smaller enemy because the threat's just not big enough anymore. You'd be like, well, okay, yeah, but we dealt with Thanos. Like, this is nothing. So
this is a problem I feel like that comes up in Dragon Ball Z a lot, where there's power creep.
Yeah.
Where, like, oh, we just defeated a god. What's bigger? What's bigger than a god? Oh, well, this is like a god of gods or whatever.
Yeah, you have to like keep upping the power level The other option, I guess, is you go ultra small just to like completely reset things. But I
don't
feel
know,
like they
'cause I feel
won't
like
do that now.
The formula that works for them, and it's a good formula, is a lot of separate movies that set up individual characters, culminating in the end of an arc, which is all of those characters getting together for a purpose. And that's why in the trailer for Spider-Man, it seems like Nick Fury and like a couple other people in the trailer are like, oh, are you going to like fill Iron Man's shoes or whatever? Are you the new Iron Man? So I feel like because Spider-Man is such a likable character, they're sort of putting him in this position to be the new Iron Man character for what I'm dubbing the new Avengers.
Kind of the heart and soul of the new team.
Sort of, yeah. So I think there is going to be a new team. Maybe it's Spider-Man, Valkyrie, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel.
Birdman with Captain America's shield.
New Birdman, Captain America. Because here's something else that I'm very much anticipating. What is that post-credit scene in Spider-Man Far From Home going to be? Because it seems like it should start setting up whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, the next phase. Yeah. It'll have to.
Famously, at the end of Iron Man, it was the first appearance of Nick Fury being like, let's talk about the Avengers Initiative. And it could very well be, and I bet, like, this is what I bet could happen, is everything's fine at the end of Spider-Man. All of a sudden, Nick Fury shows up again. He's like, I'm going to talk to you about the new Avengers Initiative. Cut to black.
Do you think they will call it New Avengers? They won't just keep
That to me sounds like
Avengers?
a comic book thing. Like, you know how there's like the Amazing Spider-Man, or like there's like a bunch of different variations of, I don't know if there's a precedent for it in the comics, but I feel like the New Avengers is a good tagline.
Well, what they do in movies is they just go Spider-Man, the Spider-Man, Spider-Man Adventure. I don't know.
They need like a core thing, because they can't just keep saying Avengers 5, 6. Like,
what if
I feel like they need a demarcation.
Avengers?
Wasn't the first one the Avengers?
It might have been. I don't know.
I feel like they need a demarcation between, because this is the end. You're right. This is the culmination of 10 years. They're stepping out into a new everything.
I don't know if they're going to be done with Guardians of the Galaxy after the third one. I don't know what the contract situation looks like with that, or what their plans are with those characters, but that could be the end of those characters. You've got Spider-Man for at least 2 more movies. You've got Black Panther for 2 more movies. You potentially have...
There's going to be another Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, well, so there's only been one solo Doctor Strange movie. If we're assuming that each of the characters gets their own trilogy and they appear in the team-up movies, then he'll get 2 more. Then Captain Marvel will get 2 more. And what was that character that they teased at the end of the first Guardians? Or maybe it was the second Guardians of the Galaxy? Adam Warlock?
Warlock?
Yeah.
Who I know nothing about, except that maybe he's made of gold?
Yeah, possibly. That's what it looked like. I feel like he will factor into this next phase. And we've heard nothing about him since that Guardians movie. So I feel like he will pop up in the next phase at some point.
There are other ones that I don't... There's a Kung Fu one that's going to be all Asian that I don't remember the name of, that people are very excited about.
Yeah, I remember seeing a headline about that at one point, but I didn't read it, so I don't remember. But yeah, that's probably on the way as well. Yeah, maybe they do something with like Valkyrie, or because there's going to be a TV series with Loki, right? Because that seemed like a setup in Endgame when they go back to the first Avengers movie, basically, and Loki gets away with the Tesseract. That is a setup for a TV show, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to have the Hawkeye TV show. There's going to be a weird Scarlet Witch Vision TV show, which I guess is set in the past, because
or in
Vision
some alternate
totally
timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They could almost do like something really off the wall, like go into sort of a post-apocalyptic, really dark timeline with like either existing characters or just a completely different character altogether. Like this sort of opens the door for that thing that we talk about with like the Mass Effect series. Like, yeah, we want to see, you know, the next big storyline, but also what if there was just like a Citadel detective series, you know? Like
that would be great.
Just like it kind of opens the door for different things now that there's sort of a multiverse. You could go in any number of directions with that.
And that really opens up for villain options like you were talking about. I mean, maybe it's not a villain per se. Maybe it's that there is this rift in the multiverse and they have to like work to solve that. Or maybe there's some sort of like overarching like figure that watches over the multiverse that is mad that they messed the multiverse up, so he's going to try to correct stuff.
Yeah, and that could be a hero or a villain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like super well versed in comics, but all right, here's a question. Will the X-Men come via the multiverse, or will it just be a natural thing that happens?
I don't know. I feel like it'll just
like
be
in our world.
A natural thing, because wasn't Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch technically X-Men?
That's a good point. Yeah, they never really got into their backstories of how they create, like how they got their powers.
Well, I mean, at that time, I think they didn't have the rights to actually do that, so they sort of skirted the issue a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe
but,
they
I mean,
could.
That basically was mutations.
Yeah, maybe they could now. Maybe they go into that a little bit.
At what point do you think we're going to see a Wolverine in this world? Because it's coming.
That's the big question. They can do it now. The question is, when do they do it, and how do they find someone as good as Hugh Jackman, or like what do you do with that?
Yeah, I don't know who's maybe you skirt it entirely and it's not Wolverine, it's like Weapon X or like the girl or something from Logan.
Oh yeah. That's
it's somebody with claws though, you know?
Yeah. That the concept of that character anyway.
I feel like I feel like that appearance of that character has to be a post-credit scene of some movie. Like maybe whatever the next team-up movie ends with a guy with claws like coming out, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Because maybe it's a character, maybe it's like an actor we don't even know, and it's just a random guy at the end that they're talking to, and all of a sudden he has claws. That would be a crazy thing to go cut to black on.
So do you know anything about, like, is Sony wrapping up their X-Men stuff? And just
I think
moving
so,
over completely to Marvel?
Yes. Sony... Well, no. I thought Fox had X-Men.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I misspoke.
Sony has Spider-Man. I think Sony owns all
right.
Spider-Man related stuff. Yeah. So Fox is wrapping up. They have that awful...
Dark Phoenix?
Phoenix. They also have that weird, like, New Mutants movie that never came out, and I think it's just being released, like, not even in theaters now. That, like, horror one about teens in a mental asylum. Do you remember that?
No. That sounds awful, but all right.
I saw a trailer for it, like, 2 years ago, and it never came out, and I think it's just been getting a ton of reshoots, and people don't know what to do with it. But as far as I know, those are the last two X-Men movies, period, until Marvel decides to do something with them, because now everything is reverted over. So, I mean,
if they do go ahead, like, maybe they wait until Fox is done and then they start doing some X-Men stuff. If they do they recast all the characters, or do they, like, bring back James McAvoy and those guys? I feel like they want 100%. Their own stuff. Yeah, because they didn't do that with Spider-Man either, so.
Yeah. This is going to be completely new. I don't know if they're going to be young or old is another thing. Like, are we going to get a Professor X that is already in the wheelchair, or are we going to get another origin story of being in the wheelchair, you know?
They like their origin stories, but I don't know.
I will say that first X-Men movie holds up really well.
Yeah, I think the first two X-Men movies hold up. I haven't seen them in years, but I feel like those two are pretty solid movies. It was when they got to the third one where everything fell apart.
Yeah.
And then there was, like, I think X-Men First Class was pretty good as well, but
yeah, I enjoyed that.
It started falling apart for me pretty quickly after that as well. So
I liked Days of Future Past just because I like time travel stuff, and I like Wolverine going back in time.
Oh, I'm glancing through my notes, and one thing I wanted to mention that I hate, this is going all the way back to Endgame, is nanotech. I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe this only bothers me, but I didn't like it in Infinity War when Iron Man just had a drawn on suit. Like, he didn't have like, his suit was cool when it was like literally a piece of armor that he like stepped into, or like it would put on him. And then now it's just like a cartoon that just sort of they animate to go around him. And so later when he like has the helmet just by itself and he's like, you know, recording himself, like, how did he even get that? Because the thing just sort of appears and disappears as if from nowhere. And it's not just him, like the other characters have these helmets that just sort of like, you know, are they controlling that? Is it like, where's it coming from?
It's all nanotech. I mean, those time suits are all nanotech.
They just sort of like, the helmets kind of come and go whenever. And in Infinity War, when Iron Man is fighting Thanos, he's just like, it becomes a cartoon where he's just like pulling random things out from behind his back. And
I have to say, I'm sort of into that. Like, I was very much anticipating every time an Iron Man suit would pop on a screen, because they do insane stuff with them now. Like, his hands will morph into like one hand and become a big laser, and like shields will flip out of his back, and like, there was that scene where his back like opened up and he had Thor shoot into his back to propel his. I don't know. I like, because they can do such creative things with his suit.
I mean, at some point it gets so wild and unbelievable though that it just like, it stopped working for me, and I kind of didn't like it anymore.
I think they had the liberty to go as powerful as they could because he was about to not exist anymore. So they were just like, how awesome can we make Tony Stark? And it doesn't matter if he becomes too powerful because he's not going to be in the universe anymore.
Like, I'm fine with that, but like, again, his suit was never cooler than it was when it was just like the first Iron Man movies and like the first Avengers movie, where it was like a literal suit and like he just had the face plate that like swung up and you could see his face still in the suit. Now it just kind of like, they draw it on him with computers and it just like, it doesn't look like anything. He looks like super CGI now, whereas before he looked like an actual physical thing.
I love that he can like make his hands into swords though and stuff.
I don't know. Like, I don't love it. Maybe it's just me. I feel like more people are with you on it, but I don't know. I did not like the nanotech stuff. It seemed too out there and unrealistic. Like, I get that we're talking about comic books, like characters and situations based on comic books, so it's like anything's fair game, but I hate helmets that appear and disappear as if from nowhere. Maybe that's like my one pet peeve that I have to deal with, but...
Other standout moments or things you disliked?
I also disliked the girl power moment where all the female Avengers just like randomly, you know, they were already fighting. It felt like pandering. I don't know. Well, they were already fighting. Did they like organize this? Did they all communicate to get together? That was one of the, like, when people talk about fan service as like a negative thing, that's a good example of it, where they're like trying too hard with something. Because the other part of it is that Captain Marvel was the one that was holding the gauntlet and she doesn't need help from anyone. So I don't know. That moment just stuck out like a sore thumb. Like they were just trying to make a point of some sort that was completely unnecessary.
Sticking out like a finger. Did you like when Doctor Strange held up that one finger? I thought that was a very powerful scene.
Oh yeah, like this is the one chance or the one.
Yeah, I like that it was kind of unspoken between them. Like, and Tony like knew exactly what that meant. He had to do.
Yeah, that was a good moment. Also, I liked that like Ant-Man has always been a character that I was like, what is he gonna do in all of this? And then the fact that he was just giant Ant-Man and you see him punch that big flying thing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I was like, okay, now I get this character and I'm totally on board.
I like, this makes me excited for an Ant-Man. You know, no one really talks about Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I thought those two were great movies, great little adventures.
Yeah, they
like
were fun,
stakes.
like low stakes movies that were kind of a nice change of pace from some of the bigger movies that surrounded those movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I also liked those. I also, like, seeing Pepper flying around in her own Iron Man suit made me really wish that there was a fourth solo Iron Man where he and Pepper, like, were sort of a buddy cop situation where they both had Iron Man suits. That would have been really cool, but another movie that should have happened in between that we didn't get.
Do you think that this would require a significant time jump, but do you think that Tony Stark's daughter is going to be the new, like, Iron Man or Iron Woman kind of thing? Ooh, do you think it'll be Iron Woman will be the name of the movie?
Is that a comic book series?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess
sure, but that would be
they could eventually get to the point where they start forging their own path and start doing their own thing with heroes. Mm-hmm. That's a possibility. I don't know.
That would be great.
I don't know if the time jump is too much, though. Yeah, I was going to say, she might be too young, and I don't know if they want to do another time jump that really affects the entire cinematic universe. So
yeah. She needs to age considerably to start.
I mean,
unless she's some sort of child prodigy.
They could do the Hawkeye thing where his daughter is now Hawkeye. They could do that.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely happen too. So good though, overall. A+ from me.
Yeah, same here. I liked it a lot. I think it was very impressive that they were able to bring it all together and that it worked as well as it did. I loved that each of the original 6 members of the Avengers really got their own moment in this and that they got such a good send-off. Except it sucks that Black Widow died, I guess. And I kind of do wish that
Maybe she'll come back,
yeah,
though.
I do wish that they brought her back. Because Scarlett Johansson is also really cool, so it'd be cool to just have more of that character. I still want the solo Black Widow movie, which I guess is happening, but it's a prequel, so it's going to feel a little bit like, I don't know.
Is it a prequel?
I guess that's a good point. It's possible.
They haven't really talked about the plot to it, have they? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of. I thought they did say it was a prequel, but maybe it's not.
Maybe you're right. It probably is an origin
I feel like
story
we need that though, because that I feel like that's a cool story, and I want to know what happens.
I agree with that. So, looking forward, what are you most excited about in the MCU?
I have to say, I'm kind of not excited about the Disney Plus shows.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know. Like, maybe they'll be really cool.
Even the Birdman and Bucky one, I think that has the potential to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess that could be like a fun buddy cop situation. Falcon.
His name's Falcon.
Ah, that's a bird. It only took us like an hour to figure out that.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep calling him Birdman, though, so. But no, yeah. They had like a funny buddy cop dynamic in, what was it, Civil War? So to see them together and sort of really engage with that would be fun.
Especially because that's going to be like him coming into his own as Captain America.
Although,
you know?
Can he really be... he doesn't have the super soldier serum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's just like a normal dude that happens to have like a jetpack with wings.
Well, is he going to keep having that jetpack? I feel like now that he's got the shield, I feel like it's a hat on a hat to have wings,
I think he will, though. Isn't that the way it is in the comics? I have not read these. I've just looked them up briefly, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. But I think he does still have the wings and the shield. But you're right. It is sort of a hat on a hat, especially since, like, while he's flying around, he uses 2 guns. Yeah. So, like...
And he's got those drones,
And he has the drones. Like, he doesn't have enough arms to hold all the props that he has now. So, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add to this?
It was a great conclusion. No, I don't think so. I think we've said it all. I'm trying to think of other, like, little moments that I liked. A lot of them involved Paul Rudd. Like his explanation or him like being upset that Back to the Future was not the end all be all for time travel.
Was it weird? Speaking of when they were mentioning pop culture references, was it weird to you that they mention, like, they called Thor the Big Lebowski and that starred Jeff Bridges, and Jeff Bridges was the bad guy in the first Iron Man movie? And then
I didn't even think about that.
Hot Tub Time Machine was referenced, and Sebastian Stan is the villain in Hot Tub Time Machine.
There's a villain in Hot Tub Time Machine?
I think so. He's like the bad guy. I don't know. I saw that movie a long time ago, and I've
never seen it.
Have only the vaguest recollection of it.
I mean, at some point, It's kind of like how they say every British actor has at some point been in Doctor Who. At some point, every actor will be in the MCU, you know?
They pretty much already have, so it's like you kind of can't reference pop culture stuff without accidentally hitting a character or an actor that's been in your MCU, so I guess that's a thing, but I don't know. It didn't bother me. It just seemed interesting. Some people will think way too hard about that and be like, wait a minute. Does Bucky, has he seen Hot Tub Time Machine and saw someone that looked a lot like himself? Is Sebastian Stan a person who exists in the MCU?
Well, also, we've run into 22 different iterations of someone who looks like Stan Lee.
Yeah. Well, wasn't he supposed to be the same person the whole time?
Oh, really?
I heard that somebody, I think you can piece them all together and it's one consistent character that's been there throughout the entire thing. I think that's what they meant it to be, but maybe I'm wrong.
Interesting.
Maybe I'm just trying to piece it together because I think it would be cool.
Well, we have to go back and watch all 22 films.
I mean, he's had multiple jobs, if that's the case, throughout the entire thing. Because he, always shows up as, a postman or, some
he's
rich
Hugh
guy.
Hefner in one of the Iron Man movies.
Yeah, it may not hold up if you try to go analyze it. Maybe I'm just trying to fictionalize that because I thought it would be fun. But anyway, I don't know. I don't have anything else that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure I'll think of something as soon as we stop recording. But
yeah, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit in next week's episode as well.
Yeah. So, no video game news this week, just talking Endgame. If you've seen the movie and you liked it or disliked it, go ahead and...
How could you dislike?
Go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know about it. And leave us a like. Give us a rating on iTunes. And follow us on Twitter at Starside Cafe. Send us an email at starsidecafe@gmail.com. Visit our website, starsidecafe.com. Did I say that one already? I've already lost track. Anyway, we're on Instagram as well, so you can look us up on there. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.